Hello, everybody, and welcome back into the LFC Transfer Room for section number 2 of the debate room. We started off with a debate on Sadio Mane. Returning is Kris and Matty. We lost Charlie, replaced him with Louis. That's an upgrade, if you ask me. Louis, how are you doing on this fine Wednesday evening?
Oh, I'm good. I'm ready. I'm warmed up and ready to fight for what I believe in on this stream.
The man we're talking about is Jordan Henderson. We'll get into that discussion in a moment. We'll let everyone get their thoughts and kind of flow in. Matty, how are you doing on this Wednesday?
I'm doing good because me and Kris were right about Mane. We said he's going to come back and score against Chelsea. Just call us mysterious, to be honest. So what we say goes. Give us a job at Liverpool, I say.
And Kris, how are you doing?
I'm sound, fella. I'm sound. I've just got myself a nice light, which I'm going to be using when I'm back in Cardiff. So I'm all equipmented out. A green screen as well coming soon to LFC Transfer Room. But you can't wait.
That is very, very exciting. So there was a discussion about another midfielder before we came on, and I feel it would only be right to continue it onto the airwaves. Philippe Coutinho, if reports are to be believed, he's going to link up with a player he used to play with, who is now a manager, Steven Gerrard. Linked to Aston Villa. Matty, you are a firm believer that he may end up at Anfield, regardless of the rumors. I'm interested. Take it away on Coutinho.
Yeah, I think anyone who sits there and says they wouldn't have Coutinho back because he faked an injury, got to ask themselves really, if Liverpool Football Club came in for you, would you? Because his club was Barca, so he faked an injury to go and play there. If I played for Barcelona and Liverpool Football Club came in for me, I'd be faking an injury. I'd say I've snapped my leg or something to go and play there. So no bad grudges. We got Alisson and Van Dijk out of it, so if anything, he's helped us. I do think if one person can get Coutinho back to Coutinho-esque form, it's Jurgen Klopp. And let's not be silly now. If we get 10% of the old Coutinho, he's a better option than the Ox and whatever else we've got in midfield. And I think if you can get Coutinho back to what he was, he's one of the best in the world.
I know, Kris, you'll take a little bit of exception to the better than Ox jibe there from Matty.
No, I don't disagree. Coutinho is like at his peak could get into any team in the world, in my opinion. But it's 4 years ago since he's been at his peak. He's not anywhere near the player that he used to be.
I mean, he won the Champions League, Kris.
It's not. Yeah, he scored a couple of goals. He wasn't good for Bayern Munich. That's why they didn't buy him. All right, he is not the player he used to be. And we'll do another debate room on this, I'm sure, later in the week. But no way would Jurgen Klopp take him back.
Yeah, we'll kind of round up the Coutinho discussion before we get into the man of the hour. But Louis, I want to get your side of things on the Coutinho debate.
I'd take it. I don't think there's no chance that Klopp would take him back. I think if the option presented itself and FSG were willing to splash out, because I think if there was a major stumbling block, we said it in the group chat, it's probably his wages and whatever way there is to get around that. So for me, that would be the biggest obstacle. I think if Klopp was offered him, I don't think he'd say no.
Well, the man of the hour is Jordan Henderson. He has been of much debate in the last few days, last few weeks. So I'm interested in, we'll have our preliminary stances before we kind of continue the discussion. Matty, I'll open things off with you. Where do you kind of stand on the Jordan Henderson? There's multiple ways you could ask it. Is he finished? Is he deserving of being a starter? What's his long-term future? There's a lot of different question marks, but kind of Jordan Henderson, where does that leave you?
I wouldn't say that Jordan Henderson is finished, to be honest with you. I wouldn't say he deserves to start week in, week out anymore, but I wouldn't say he's finished. Same reason with Milner. Now, a lot of people slag Milner off, but with Henderson, he's a winner. He's got that mentality. He's good in the dressing room. He drives the players forward. And I do think having someone like that in the dressing room improves the squad as a whole. I strongly don't believe Jordan Henderson should be starting week in, week out. And we've seen that against Chelsea, he was abysmal. However, I don't think he's finished. And I just think he may be out of form. May he ever get back to the form we've seen of him when we won the league and we won the Champions League? Maybe not. But I wouldn't say he's finished, and I'd still keep him around just for the pure experience, for the new. Like, look at someone like Harvey Elliott coming in. You're looking up to a captain who's won the lot. That experience is invaluable in a dressing room, in my opinion.
Hasn't won the FA Cup.
Oh, that win that this year.
Kris, where do you stand on the Henderson debate?
Right, I'm going to move emotion from this. I'm removing the emotion. Jordan Henderson's not good enough. And I'll tell you this why. Statistically, when Jordan Henderson plays on the right side of Liverpool's midfield, the midfield three, Liverpool average 1.8 points per game. When Jordan Henderson does not play there, we average 2.2 points per game. I rest my case. Liverpool are a better team without Jordan Henderson in the starting 11. Yes, great bloke, absolute top legend of Liverpool Football Club, but he's not good enough anymore. In my opinion, I genuinely don't think that, and I can't see a world in which people can think that he gets maybe in our starting top five midfielders, let alone top three.
Louis, you are a common defender in the watch-alongs of Jordan Henderson. You're preparing yourself now. Look at how they're massacring your boy. Louis, give us your stance on Jordan Henderson.
Well, we can all whip out some surface level statistics if we look hard enough. I mean, sorry, Kris. With that stat, I have to question who his midfield partners were in those games. We often talk about Fabinho and Thiago being the difference between us winning and losing games. To throw Jordan Henderson into that, I think a lot more research needs to be done. Look, I love Jordan Henderson, but I'm also not going to sit here and say that he's been brilliant all season and he, by birthright, deserves to be starting game after game for Liverpool. I think this season he's had a very clear down, up, and then down again path in his form. So, same as Matty, he's absolutely not finished at all. He's 31. He's in his absolute physical prime, I suppose, close to, hitting that older bracket. But I decided to do a little bit of digging and reminisce on this season so far. And obviously, I think we all saw that he started the season fairly poorly. And for me, especially, was quite ill-disciplined, especially in his defensive work. And I think that's where he gets criticised for most people this season. So often in the past, he's been covering Trent down that right side whilst Trent's bombed forward. But for some strange reason, and I don't know whether it's tactical or not, he's pushed forward as well. And there's been less people to fill in down our right-hand side. And in the last week or two, we've seen that exploited one or two times. But let's not forget, this season, he has had a run of very good games. I'm thinking the first AC Milan game. I'm thinking the Crystal Palace game. I'm thinking the Manchester United game. I mean, we all played well in that one. The Everton game. There was a clear part of this season where he was playing at a very high level. And I think that's where... Sorry, I realise I've gone on for a while there. But I think that's where, fans can be quite short-sighted and quite short-term and quite wavering, and we go on about loyalty a lot in football and say loyalty is dead amongst players, but I think we're getting to the point where loyalty is dead amongst fans as well.
You got a lot of points there, Louis. I want to kind of draw on a few of them. I think one of the most notable ones is the position he plays now with that right side of the center of the midfield three, and that's a very advanced role this season. We've seen a lot of link-up play high up the pitch with him, Trent, and Salah on that right-hand side. So, Matty, I go to you with this. Is that role best suited for him? And is he because he's not a guy who's very technically advanced. So playing him in that role seems like an odd choice. Is that on his end, or is that on Klopp's end that he hasn't been the best fit in the right center mid spot?
I think it's on the end that we're very light in midfield and we've got a very injury ravaged midfield, so he's got to play there. I don't believe Jordan Henderson should play on the right side of midfield because the right side of midfield heavily covers Trent, because Trent this season seems to be given a lot more creative freedom to go forward. So that right side is meant to cover him a little bit more. And Henderson just hasn't got the legs to do that anymore. But like I said, I don't think he should be starting week in, week out. I do think he should be there as a squad option. Our strongest midfield by an absolute country mile when fit is Fabinho, Keita and Thiago. 100%. There's no one else.
I'd argue Harvey Elliott goes in there ahead of Naby.
Potentially, if we get Harvey Elliott back from his injury as good as he was at the start of the season, because he was phenomenal at the start of the season for us. But the only thing that frustrates me massively about Jordan Henderson, we see him in the Chelsea game, he's dictating where players run. He's shouting them where to go. But in the Chelsea game, I think it was for their second goal, he's pointing, screaming at Trent to run somewhere, and he stood there stagnant. It's like, run yourself. It's like, instead of dictating where everyone goes, have a go yourself. And some of his passes this season seem to be like Henderson of old, where he just passes it back or passes it sideways. And he just seems a little bit like the Henderson that used to frustrate everyone a few years ago. But like I said, having him in the squad, he's a fantastic squad option. I just don't think he is starting 11 material anymore. But then if he's not starting all the time, it's then like he's the captain of the club. It's like when Stevie was there and he was always getting benched under Rodgers. Everyone was fuming because he was the captain of the club and he weren't starting. So then you've got that debate. I mean, in my honest opinion, I'm biased, but I think that he shouldn't be in the starting 11 and Virgil van Dijk should be the captain. But that's just my love for Virgil coming through a bit too much, I think.
You made a lot of good points there as well. Kris, I'll let you kind of get in on the midfield dynamic, because Louis made a great point on how many matches that Henderson's played well in. How many of those was Thiago, the other midfield partner? I think that it is very interesting, the dynamic in that midfield and how it causes Henderson to play. But I guess his role in the midfield, how you view that, Kris.
I want to caveat everything I will say with the fact that I love Jordan Henderson. I absolutely adore the man. And, you know, just because I don't think he should be in the top 5 midfielders at our club doesn't mean the fact that I just don't adore the bloke. He's just amazing. But I'll tell you now, on that right-hand side of midfield, has he got the legs to cover Trent, as Matty said? Probably not. But and Thiago does a much better job. Jonathan said that. We'll start reading out everyone's comments as well. But does he have, you know, the engine anymore that he used to have for playing 3 games a week? I only think he's there for a necessity, because if you think about it, Matty said we're short in midfield. We're not. We've got the most depth in that position in our entire club. We've got Fabinho, Thiago, Henderson, Elliott, Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain.
Who's your top five midfielders then?
My top 5, Curtis Jones is in there as well. My top 5 would be including Fabinho. We're including Fabinho.
Or just your full top 5.
Fabinho, Thiago, Keita, Elliott, and Fabinho, Thiago, Keita, Elliott, Jones. All ahead of Henderson for me nowadays.
Jones, that's interesting.
Very careful what you say now, Jackie boy.
It's interesting. I mean, it's captain of the club, and I want to bring this comment.
I think Jones has so much more quality about him. There's so much more.
Far too inconsistent.
To give. There's so much more to give, though. Maybe he's not quite the player Henderson is yet, but I would always play him ahead of him.
I want to bring in some comments to drive the discussion a different way. Julia said before the stream started, it's a large comment. I'll kind of summarize it. So he's the captain. That means something. So bad form to class is permanent. Form is temporary. And Louis, I'll go to you on that. How much of an impact does the captaincy play on his selection and on what his long-term future should be?
From what we know about Klopp and the way he is and the way he speaks, I don't think he's someone who would, if he thought Henderson was done or if he didn't think that he was a regular starter, I don't think he'd keep him as captain. The way he goes about it, I don't know, because that's not what's happening at the moment. But there is a part, and I hate to be that. I agree with Julia. I hate to be that fan who says like, well, if Klopp says it or if the manager says it, then it must be right. But I don't know. Oh no, I've been caught out there. There's what can I say? I've taught her well. But no, I don't think it has any bearing. I think if Klopp doesn't think he's good enough, he doesn't start him. That's my general point.
Matty, the captaincy in that role.
It's tough, innit? Because you do want your captain, your leader on the pitch. But like I said, Jordan Henderson isn't in the starting 11 for me. If we were writing down our strongest starting 11, Jordan Henderson is not in that. And Virgil van Dijk would take that captaincy, in my opinion. But like I said, I'd keep him. I'd keep him purely for Henderson's good as a squad option. But I've seen Anthony's comments. There's too many squad options in midfield. There is. We have literally got a really strong midfield three and then too many squad options there. Now, if Jordan Henderson is not the captain of the Liverpool Football Club, how many people are going to sit there and say he should be starting week in, week out? Because I feel as though if Jordan Henderson wasn't the captain, he'd be the scapegoat, like we often see the Ox and Kaito and stuff like that made out to be. There's always a scapegoat within our fan base, and Jordan Henderson is protected a lot by the fan base because he's the captain. However, I do think we should keep him around because he's a fantastic squad option, his mentality, everything he offers in that aspect. I'd keep Hendo. I'd never get rid of him. I want to see Hendo retire at Liverpool. I think he's been a fantastic servant to the club. He's been a fantastic person to take over the captaincy from Steven Gerrard, and is what he's done for us and how much he's improved. Let's not forget we were nearly selling him for Condemnity a few years ago, and the improvements under him. Chris said, I love Jordan Henderson. I never want to see him go. But I just think if you're being serious, like your strongest midfield is not Jordan Henderson.
Kris, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything Matty said there. I just want to bring up this comment here. I didn't say he's lost it. When he's covering for Trent Alexander-Arnold, which is a big job, you realise when a player like Trent, the reason he's putting up these attacking numbers is because he's given the license to go forward. And Hendo doesn't provide those legs. But in terms of the captaincy, right, is it... I look at that Liverpool squad and I see leaders everywhere. I see Virgil van Dijk, I see Alisson, I see Andy Robertson, I see Hendo, I see Mo Salah. Is the captaincy not just a little bit... It's just an armband at the end of the day. There are so many leaders in that team, a great dynamic there to win. And James Milner as well, you know, players who have been there, won it and done it. The captaincy for me, like, be club captain, that's the thing. You're able to do that. But I don't think that means that you should be excused from what has been a very shocking few months for him. It really has been.
I agree with you. I think Jurgen Klopp looks at it as just an armband because we've seen Divock Origi get that armband and he does it on time saved at the club. But a lot of our fan base think it's the holy grail having that armband, and I think a lot of our fan base protect Henderson a little bit too much because he has got it. But like I said, I wouldn't get rid of him. I think he's a fantastic addition to the team, but he's just definitely not starting 11 material anymore. Like, I think there's a stat that Thiago haven't won like 100% of games when he starts or something stupid like that. Like, it says it all, really.
Yeah, I want to on our tweet asking what position Henderson is best in. The results were warming the bench, cheerleader, bench, 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 and then one saying maybe as a like a rotation option, so basically bench. I think that's kind of reflects the debate, is it not? Because I don't think any of us are here claiming that Henderson needs to leave. I'm of the opinion with you guys as well that he should end the club and end his career at the club. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not sure if I agree with he's not top 5 midfielders at the club, Kris, but I think that
he's heading that way.
He is heading that way. I think he shouldn't be a starting option. So I think that should a midfielder be a transfer priority then to try and solve this issue?
100%. Liverpool need a midfielder. 100 million %. We need a midfielder. And I think several journalists have confirmed that that's our main target next summer is a midfielder. I do think we need an attacker as well. I think next summer we'll probably bring in an attacker and a midfielder, but I think midfielder is priority number 1. And I do think that Jude Bellingham probably is that man. So we might even see Liverpool wait a year if Dortmund don't sell him next summer. But I do think I think if we brought another midfielder in now, Henderson drops down to not even in the top 5, which is what Kris is saying. I do agree with that because Fabinho, Thiago, Keita on his day, Elliot was putting in better performances before he got injured than Henderson has this season. That's just facts. And he was playing on the right side. So where does comments are saying...
And he was covering. And he was covering as well.
Just comments saying that we're just putting players there for the fact of good. Harvey Elliott played on that right-hand side and we looked a lot more fluid on the right-hand side when Harvey Elliott played there.
You know, we talked about this in the Mane debate, I believe, that left wing spot. Mane has 8 goals in the Prem. I think he had 7 at the moment when we made that debate, but he has 8 goals in the Prem. That's good, but almost an opportunity cost of what left winger in the world could you not stick there, and they would not be able to have a lot of opportunities. So I think that how much in that right central midfield spot, you know, does that play into things? Because you say Henderson's good, Louis. I'll let you kind of defend this. I'll pose it almost as who could not be good in that right center mid spot when you have such a great system around it.
Well, I think there was a point I was going to make earlier, but I think this season there's definitely been a tactical change in how the right-sided 8 operates. And although Kris, you're right. Elliot, from what I can remember, did cover a bit more. I think there's being less of that asked in that role. I think because last season he was covering a lot, like all the time for Trent going upfield. Whereas this time it's him, Trent, and Salah constantly making triangles out on that right side, each of them interlinking, providing overlaps, underlaps, crosses into the half space, what have you. So I think it's harder for Henderson to be covering all the time, and I think that's I don't think that's down to him. I think that was a purposeful change in the position. So I don't know. For me, he's just in a bad run of form, and Elliot, although he started the season brilliantly, I'm just trying to remember who our first few fixtures were.
Norwich.
Did he play in the
Burnley.
Chelsea game?
Yeah, and he was our best player.
Right, but beginner's luck in it. No, I don't think he's ready. He's very, 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 very good, but he's not ready to be our consistent right-sided 8.
When he was fit, no one could dislodge him.
It is an interesting debate, isn't it? I think that, and Matty, I think the long-term target, we see this comment from Anthony about some targets, Neves.
Definitely not Neves.
You don't
Definitely
think
not.
Neves? Not
No
for an 8?
way. No
Oh.
way. He reminds me so much of Emre Can. It's unbelievable. Turns up once every 10 games.
That's a different debate entirely. But that right-sided 8 spot that you want to fill, we are almost in general consensus as a fan base that there's going to be no signings made this window. So if that doesn't happen, and if Matty, as you mentioned, Jude Bellingham isn't an option until 2023, you're looking at another year and a half of Jordan Henderson. I mean, do you have to start playing likes of Curtis Jones as a starter in that right center mid spot? Because I think that, and I'll back Kris up a bit on that. Would he be worse than Henderson? Because I think he's technically at a better level.
I think with Henderson as well, like I've seen a few comments here of people saying like Henderson was our best player in this game, Henderson was our best player in this game, but then the same people are commenting that Kate is so inconsistent. Henderson this season has had some unbelievably good performances, but he's not consistent. So everyone sits and slags Naby Keita off for his inconsistencies. Jordan Henderson is just as inconsistent as Naby Keita. He is.
I think people then make out that Keita's that much better than Henderson, and we're yet to see that on a
He's a lot more creative, Naby Keita. If the Leicester game in the League Cup, Naby Keita changed that game 100%. When he came on, he changed the game.
And then he came on in the league and
wasn't that good. And he is inconsistent, Keita, and he's another subject to debate about entirely. But
yeah, I don't have a problem with him, but I just think if we're going to compare those two, the argument that you're making is that therefore Keita is that much better. But really, in current form, they're at about the same level. And we haven't seen anywhere near enough from Keita the whole time he's been here to suggest that he can start week in, week out because of injuries, but also because of just general inconsistency and actually be better than Jordan Henderson. We all think he's probably got a higher ceiling, but we're yet to be proven on that.
I want to... So Louis, you mentioned some of the good performances Henderson has had this season. And in my opinion, that...
My guy never gives up this.
Carter has been relentless with his Loftus cheek. And you know what, Carter?
You have to respect it. He never stopped.
The consistency and not backing off. It'd be interesting. Best performances, Louis. You mentioned the derby. What are some of the other ones? Because I believe, I'll get my theory in a moment. What were some of the best performances of Henderson this season in your eyes?
So it was, Man United as well, the derby, and then I can't remember what else I said now. But what's your point?
Basically, the point I'm hitting on is we talk about Keita versus Henderson, and when does and so in the derby, Henderson was in that 6 role, which was United were just terrible on the day. But the derby especially, Thiago was at left center mid. I personally believe the biggest dynamic for Jordan Henderson is having Thiago in the midfield with him. I think Henderson's unplayable if he doesn't have Thiago next to him in the midfield. Because Naby Keita, if he's at left center mid with Henderson on the right, which is what Klopp has done sometimes, it just doesn't work as well. I think if Keita was in that right center mid spot, how many times have we seen Thiago, Keita, Fabinho? We say that's the best midfield 3. How many times have we actually seen that
isn't it?
on a pitch?
I think anyone you put, I think Fabinho and Thiago are the nailed on starters, and whoever you put, it's just them two and someone. Thiago is unbelievable. What like when you look at his stats and things he's done at this club, yeah, he's injury prone, and we knew that before we signed him and that. But I think it's always going to be Fabinho, Thiago, and it's always going to be that when fit. It's got to be. They are the two strongest midfielders in this club, and when they start together, Liverpool are a different team completely.
I'm looking at some of the stats on FB Ref, and the difference in their defensive stats are remarkable in Thiago and Henderson. Henderson's in the 5th percentile of pressures of central midfielders. Thiago's in the 75th, and it's tough. In that sense, to figure out what his long-term role is. And I think, it's just tough. I'm struggling to kind of put into words what his long-term role is because, no one wants him to leave, but he's almost a victim of lack of options.
His long-term role for me is the role that James Milner's playing right now. Comes in for the occasional start, rotational, brought on in the last 20 minutes if we need a steady head. I just don't think he's even in the next 3 years, which is contract. We haven't even spoken about him given a new contract. It like 3 years with the option of a 4th. If he's starting by the end of that regularly, then there's a problem at the club because he shouldn't be starting now, let alone then. So
there's a few comments here about Henderson's defensive stats. Now, someone actually put this in our group chat the other day. Per 90, Henderson is only in the 5th percentile of tackles won. He's successful in 0.72 tackles per 90. And people are sitting here saying his defensive stats are good. Go and have a look at them. Like, I was quite surprised when I seen them. They're shocking. They're so bad. For someone who everyone's saying nailed on starter, even like his tackles, he's only attempting 1.19 tackles per 90. He's meant to be like an enforcer in the midfield. Do you know what I mean? And even his pressures, 3.93 successful pressures per game. That's just lazy. I mean, I love Henderson. I do love him, but anyone who is sat there saying that he still should start has got the rose-tinted glasses on. Like, I'm not saying get rid of Jordan Henderson. I don't think any of us are. He's fantastic in the squad, and he's a good squad option. There's comments here saying I think he should be coming on like the 60th minute to enforce midfield. I probably agree. I just don't think. I think Liverpool really need to improve the midfield. That's one area of the team where I do think we are a little bit weak.
How harsh are we? LFC Spectre brings up this managed question. Henderson, lots of issues this season in midfield with injuries, COVID related. How harsh are we being on almost focusing in on Henderson as bearing a lot of the brunt of the criticism in the midfield that's existed this season?
Well, in that case, start Nat Phillips and Reece Williams this year
in midfield,
in centre back. That's like why no one was bothered. Like if Nat Phillips goes this window, which he will, everyone will be like, thanks for your service, Nat. But that's just pure sentiments. He started because of the injuries and COVID. He said fantastic, but Nat Phillips and Reece Williams done that last year in centre back when we had the injuries. Do you know what I mean? You can't sit and say he deserves to start because he's played in all the issues this season. It's ridiculous. Like, there's a comment there that he should never have been given a new contract. It was pure fan service. Jordan Henderson quite clearly leaked it that we weren't getting a new deal.
I'm pretty sure you did campaign for it though.
Jordan Henderson does deserve a new contract. He does. I honestly, like I said before, I want to see Henderson see his contract and his career out at Liverpool because he's been a fantastic servant to the club. He's proved everyone wrong, but now he doesn't deserve to start, and he's right. James Milner against Chelsea in our first half was running everywhere, throwing tackles and everywhere. He's 33. People are telling him not to give him a new contract, and I probably would agree with that. Jordan Henderson wasn't doing that. Milner, regardless if he hasn't got the legs, you'll see him sprint one side of the pitch to another and throw his tackle in. Henderson won't do that.
Yeah. That midfield three against Chelsea was very, very difficult to watch because, I think, and let's talk about the contracts in a moment, but that match, the lack of control in that midfield, because Milner and Henderson and even Fabinho, none of them could control the football. And it just meant that match was wide open. And that did not help with that atmosphere at the Bridge. Should he have signed a contract? I know, Kris, you made the argument when it happened, I believe, when we were debating this contract. No, he shouldn't sign a new contract. Was it, hindsight's obviously 50-50. Was it a mistake to give Henderson a new deal?
I think on the terms we did give it to him, yeah. 4-year contract for a 31-year-old player. When did Liverpool ever do that?
And throw in that we are arguing about Mo Salah's contract, and he should get one straight away before
Exactly.
someone like that.
But I think Henderson did brilliantly because there was a lot of outcry from the fans for him to get one. But if you look at the way, and I'm looking at this a pure FSG Pittsburgh Penguins head right now, okay, I'm thinking, why should I give a contract to someone who is probably not going to be in our best midfield three in 2 years' time, let alone 4 years' time, and give him a deluxe pay rise as well? Yes, he's done a lot for the club, but you shouldn't be rewarded for past achievements. You should be rewarded for what you could do in the future. And he won't provide what someone on a likely deluxe wage should be doing that, right?
I want to pose this question. We have this comment, one of the best players at the club. We have a lot of people defending Henderson. And I'll go to Louis with you on this because you're our resident Henderson defender. And I don't mean to throw you under the bus with this, but what is Henderson's best attribute? What is Henderson good at? Don't take away the dressing room. And I won't say take away yelling at players on the pitch, because that's actually a pretty good attribute to have. But what is Henderson's best attribute, and what makes him a good footballer?
So apart from his leadership, which when we talk about players' leadership as one of their, sorry, I will answer your question properly, but when we talk about leadership as someone's biggest strength, people often like to come back on that is, well, it's not useful having that. It doesn't matter if that's in the dressing room, it matters what's on the pitch. But you have to understand that even though we've got Van Dijk, Thiago, Fabinho, Robertson, Henderson as a leader still brings a lot onto the pitch. And Matty, you said that you feel like Henderson's been protected a lot by having his captaincy. But I don't know, I felt there's two sides to every story. And from what I see and have read season upon season, there always comes a point where Henderson is questioned and is thrown under the bus if we go for a bad run of form. I feel like Henderson's one of the first people to kind of get it in the neck. So I don't know. But in terms of his biggest quality, apart from that, I'd say his passing. But then we also do have Fabinho and Thiago in the midfield as well. And I'll admit their passing's obviously better than Henderson's, but he's got some crackers in him every now and then. And passing it sideways and backwards isn't always a bad thing. And sometimes we need that to kill the game in a certain moment.
Yeah, and look,
this comment, Jack, one sec. This comment from Spectre, I 100% agree with about this one.
Yeah,
I do think the whole stream I've sat and said I would not get rid of Jordan Henderson, and I do think he would be better coming off the bench on like the 60th, 70th minute, or being like a James Milner who will cover everywhere. The whole argument is about, is he good enough to be in that midfield three anymore?
I'm reading the same thing you are, Chris.
Right, I just want to bring this up. Why don't we question Van Dijk's form? Because it's not been bad.
It's not been bad.
So
he had one bad mistake against Chelsea, and I'd
okay. What was the mistake there? What was the mistake? I think about where he was jogging on the Pulisic goal.
In their second goal, their second goal, Van Dijk, I do feel could have done more. But Virgil van Dijk's just come back from tearing his ACL and looks like nothing's happened to him. He's an absolute colossus. You take Van Dijk's form. On that goal, we aren't fit. We aren't in the top four if you take Van Dijk out of our defense. That's just facts.
No chance. On that goal of Pulisic, if Van Dijk runs across to cover Konate, who got beaten, Pulisic just squares it to Mount, who was right behind Van Dijk. He was literally covering that run and the far post. I don't think he did anything wrong there. Yeah, he was jogging, and I think
it's clutching at straws really to blame Van Dijk. But if that's what people seem to have done about it, but that's the only mistake I could think that anyone would pinpoint on Van Dijk this season, because he literally looks like he hasn't tore his ACL, and he's just come back from 12 months out.
Yeah, no, I see that it's. I don't know if experience. This squad is not lacking experience in the slightest. This is one of the most experienced squads in the league. You know, and Louis, the reason I asked you that question was not to kind of be accusatory, like give me reasons why Henderson's good, because it's very hard to. That's my point. Almost is it's not easy to kind of give technical reasons why Henderson is good. His leadership, fantastic. And I'm not going to go as far to say as he's Charlie Adam at best, but because you can't just take away his voice box. It's a very, very important part. I just don't think that you can really, because if Jude Bellingham in that right center mid spot, and this team is top of the league. I think that there is such a creative difference that could exist in that right center midfield spot that Henderson is just, and again, Henderson is victim of his need to play. I think if you had other options, if you had an ownership group, and we'll have an FSG in or out debate room down the road, but I think that if you try and pinpoint like the issues, a lot of them fall on Henderson. It's not because he's a bad player, not because he's bad and should leave the club. It's just because he's had to play so much. So
I'll go raise this question before we go.
I just want to pull up Van Dijk's stats as well, Chris. I think they're going to bring
go on. Right. So I want to pull this up. I think it's very, very revisionist to say that we shouldn't have got rid of Wijnaldum. Okay, because the midfield goal contributions have gone up, I think, over like 16% already this season from last season. But was it a little bit of a mistake to let him go and not give him a contract when we gave Jordan Henderson a contract, when Wijnaldum's arguably a lot more robust and could last a lot longer?
Yeah, that is my biggest exception, was signing Henderson in the same window where you said no to Wijnaldum's demands. It was just the armband. The armband was the only difference that existed there. So, and
what about you, Louis? What were your thoughts on that? Because
we are missing
Wijnaldum.
We're missing him this season.
Yeah, I mean, he was predominantly on the left side, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Did he play many games on our right side ever? Do we know? I don't know if he'd do a better job.
He played a lot on the left, and Thiago played a lot on the right when they played together last year when there was injuries and stuff. But Gini was heavily the left centre midfielder.
What I will say is that I agree with letting Wijnaldum go, because I think he held up our midfield too much. As Chris said in our chat, the pro coach, you can go watch all of his videos. There's too much control there. We didn't create enough going forward, especially without it. But on the same terms as Hendo, I just don't know. It's a strange one.
Look at, we always say, why doesn't Wijnaldum score in the midfield for Liverpool when he does it for the national team of the Netherlands? Would Wijnaldum be worse than Henderson in the advanced 8 role, given the license to actually be a bit creative as the right-sided 8? Would he be worse than Henderson?
I think he'd probably be better, to be honest with you. Gini Wijnaldum didn't score many goals for Liverpool to compare to the national team because his role was completely different. His role was to help cover that 6. And there's a comment there somewhere that the only issue with Gini was losing our second best 6, and he's right. Gini Wijnaldum's defensive abilities was phenomenal. And I do believe we have missed him a lot this season, but you can't always reminisce on the past, I suppose. But I love Gini Wijnaldum. He was like, there's another comment there, workhorse. That's what he was. But if you did give him the more license to attack more, we've seen in the Netherlands team, he'll score goals. So if he would have stayed and played in that 8, would he have been better than Henderson? I guess we'll never know, but I think it's a good shout.
Here's the thing is that I want to mention, because I know you wanted to hop in, but real quick. We should not have re-signed Wijnaldum. We should have replaced Wijnaldum. But we didn't spend any money in replacing a reliable option who could kind of be flexible in those midfield 3 roles. And we didn't replace him. And that was what was foolish. Is I don't think Wijnaldum was the literal man, because there are better options and we should have signed someone else. He was also getting on in age. Just because it may have been a mistake to give Henderson this long deal doesn't mean it was also automatically the right decision to give Wijnaldum a deal. Maybe they made the right call, but by not signing another midfielder, that was the mistake in my eyes.
I don't think it was a mistake to give Hendo that contract, because he is what he offers, like I said at the start of the stream, what he offers in terms of leadership and in the dressing room, it's irreplaceable, really. Like, look at James Milner when he came in. Liverpool had a team full of people who were coming from like Southampton, where 4th is seen as an achievement. You bring someone like James Milner who's won stuff, it changes the mentality. And Jordan Henderson's got that. The whole team's got the mentality now, but I mean, any new player who comes in learning from Jordan Henderson, they're going to get that winning mentality from him. I just don't think he deserves to start anymore. But in terms of Jordan Henderson, I really do hope he sees his career out at Liverpool, because what he is in the dressing room is irreplaceable. And just one thing on the person who said Van Dijk's been poor this season, he's only been dribbled past 0.05% of times this season in the 99th percentile, and he's made 0 errors according to the statistics. So have that.
I and LFC Spectre, we're picking on you a little bit with these and on your, And in fairness, we did pick on Sadio Mane. We did look at Sadio Mane.
There is a Sadio Mane video last week.
Yeah. So look, I mean, this is a squad. It's a squad game. 11 players on the pitch at the same time, unless it's the last few minutes against Spurs, and that game was crap for multiple reasons. You can pick out individual parts and say this should be better. I think for a title-winning side, Henderson should not be starting. Not to say he's not part of a squad that wins a title, but a title-winning 11, I question if he's the best option in that right center mid spot. So that's what I'd see. And, I think Blackhammer, this is fundamentally the point that I think we all kind of agree about, but it's just I think we kind of are slightly different in how we see it. I don't think anyone believes Henderson should leave. Maybe the contract wasn't the best terms possible, but I do think there should be some emotion allowed, Kris. I disagree with you on that. I think that you should say he's your captain. You can't just throw him by the wayside. It's a little financially irresponsible, but I think that I'm not going to say FSG. I can't complain about them not being financially irresponsible when not making transfer signings, and then also bemoan them being financially irresponsible to do an emotionally good thing.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think we'd all love someone to come in and buy people. I mean, there's something on Twitter the other day about FSG and our last out of our last 8 windows, we'd only signed Drovel, basically, not very well. Apart from
Thiago Jota and
the big ones, but all the other we've had windows where I think it's in last 4 windows or something. We've only signed very minimal. I do think Liverpool needs to strengthen, and the fact the squad's aging is really, really, really worrying. But we're never good. Them owners aren't going to sell us for less than 3 billion. So it's who's going to come in and buy us for that.
Another day, innit?
Yeah. And you bring up stats mean nothing, but if fundamentally on the Van Dijk, why are we not complaining about his form? If you think Van Dijk has been poor, then Jordan Henderson might be one of the worst footballers you've ever watched. If you're claiming that Van Dijk has been poor this season so far,
how can stats mean nothing as well? Stats are literally based on the performance within a game.
You need to have. There's a balance.
Listen, it's a game of opinions, and fair enough. You believe what you believe, but I just don't agree.
Yeah,
I cannot believe that I've finally seen someone slag Van Dijk off. I can't believe it.
No, he gets a lot of hate from rival fans because he's and the one thing that I will not slag Van Dijk off for, but say is he's not at his pre-ACL tear form, and that's no disrespect. He tore his ACL. He's a different player afterwards. He's still learning how to adjust.
Look at Liverpool this season compared to last season. Van Dijk is literally the only difference that's been added in because we only bought Canate. So in terms of this season, we're our performances compared to last season. Van Dijk, that pass he makes from the defence to the attack and splits open a whole team. We missed that massively last season. The amount of streams we've done last year saying we're literally missing Van Dijk in that aspect. He's unbelievable. He's the best centre half to ever play the game of football, in my opinion.
I think to kind of wrap up the discussion, because at the end of the day, these are all opinions. How we view Henderson and how good he is. I think Henderson in a much smaller role would look much better. Look at Divock Origi. He's had 6 minutes this season, and he's had the Milan goal. He had the Wolves goal. So he's had a pretty crazy season based on his minutes contribution. My question is, of the 11 players in the starting lineup, Alisson in net, Trent right back, probably Matip right center back, Van Dijk left center back, Robertson left back, the midfield trio, Fabinho, Henderson, Thiago, and then the front three, Salah, Jota, Mane. Which player needs to be replaced first? Is it Henderson in that right center mid spot? What position needs strengthening the most? My argument is that right center mid spot is the first one that needs to be replaced. That's my argument.
I think it depends how well Harvey Elliott comes back from his injury. Because if he comes back how he was before his injury, then I would argue the left attacking spot, someone from the front three, is more of a must than a midfielder, because Mo Salah physically can't, and he can do it all on his own. He has done that all on his own. But I mean, we do need someone else to help out a little bit up top. Jota's chipped in loads this year, but I do believe Mane needs to chip in more. But I do think an attacker is more of a necessity than a midfielder if Harvey Elliott comes back like he left. Now, if he doesn't come back and hit the ground running again, then I'd probably say a midfielder is essential.
Because it's a toss-up in my eyes between Mane and Henderson on what position is most needed of replacement. And Louis, I know you're a big Henderson defender, but should he be the first position that is replaced in the starting lineup with a new signing or with a Harvey Elliott, kind of in that first choice 11?
I'm going to pull an old politician, and I'm not going to answer your question properly. I'm going to say he doesn't. Depth is a good thing. Robertson could be easily interchanged with Tsimikas.
And Louis, I'll jump in really quick and say you don't have to sell Henderson. He doesn't have to have no role going forward. But of that starting
11, I understand. I'm not saying he should start every game and play every minute. And I know you guys aren't saying let's get rid of him, let's make him play for the under-23s. I'm not even suggesting he's mainly a substitute player. I think he's going for a bad bit of form. Elliott comes back, give him a couple of games to get back into the groove of things. Let Henderson have a break because he hasn't had many this season. Bring him back in, and I guarantee he'll be right back up there. We see that time and time again. He gets chewed out after a bad run. He'll have a few games out, either injury, suspension, or tiredness. He'll come back and he'll look way better. And that's my final thoughts. Yeah. And no one has changed my mind.
The debate room has not managed to knock you off your perch. That deserves a lot of credit, Louis. Kris, of that 11, and it's debatable if Henderson is in a fully fit starting 11, but is that the spot that should be targeted the most?
After we signed Jared Bowen, yeah.
Jared Bowen on the left wing.
Jared
Bowen on the left wing. I couldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate it necessarily. No, I think Henderson is an interesting debate, because it drags in a lot of different discussions about captaincy, the English versus non-English players, based on how much he's had to play versus how much he should be playing because of, his own fitness battles he's been having. And I want to make very clear, this is I think, what is the title of this stream? Is Henderson finished? Maybe something like that.
I put, is Henderson good enough?
I think he's good enough for a different role. That's my final take on it.
Yeah. I agree.
I seen a comment there, and that's a good point. Does Jordan Henderson go into any other team challenging for this Premier League as a starter?
Oh, that's such a redundant comment. People said that every single year, and we won a Champions League and a Premier League. People say that every year.
Those seasons when we won the Champions League and Premier League, Jordan Henderson was easily
without Man City stockpiling and money doping. Yeah,
so
we're right up there.
At the moment, the top four is what? Us, Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal.
He gets in Arsenal's midfield every day of the week.
Yeah, he gets in the Arsenal midfield, to be fair. But
he gets in Tottenham's midfield.
Jorginho misses a couple of penalties and Henderson's in there.
So
he's up there.
And you know what? I always loved, this is a different debate entirely, but when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was the manager of Manchester United, my favorite jab was, would he be a manager for any other Premier League club? Would any other Premier League club employ him to manage them? And the answer is no, because he's a crap manager. Henderson, I don't think is at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer deluded levels in the slightest. I think and you know what? The fact that he has a shout to be in Chelsea, he would definitely start for Arsenal, probably for Spurs. He's a very usable player down the road. I think Charlie has ended the stream with one of the most harshest takes of the day. Charlie, get off the account. Stop embarrassing us all.
Henderson deserves to see his career out at Liverpool. I stand by that point. He really does. If we was to get rid of Jordan Henderson, I'd be gutted just because of his mentality and leadership in the dressing room, but doesn't deserve to start.
We do have to run rings around ourselves in these discussions because we're always like, maybe we should sign a player. Then we remember that FSG are the owners, and we're like, well, time to go back into this debate of our few options that we have.
You know what, though, Jack? I think we're going to have a big summer. I know James.
Okay, all right, Matty. Right, that's enough. Get off the PlayStation, fella. Come on.
But quite a few journalists now have said Liverpool are looking.
Yeah, they said that last summer.
I know, but we went and bought what we needed.
Or maybe that's Kris. I'm not sure if it's not Charlie. Not Kris. I'm not sure if that was.
It'll be Dan. It'll be Dan.
You think it'll be Dan?
I was in the comments before on his own account. To be fair.
So was Charlie though.
Ooh.
Switching the accounts. No, but I do think we will have a decent summer next year. Mind you, I know journalists say that all the time every year, but
okay.
He's best in Saka and he's best in Party as well, 100%.
No. Okay, maybe Thomas Partey. I think Thomas Partey's actually, but that's a
Jordan Henderson.
He's had 2 good games for Arsenal in 2 years. No chance.
Tough argument. Tough argument.
He is better than Thomas Partey, Jordan Henderson.
Oh, goodness Christ. If this was the summer, I mean, this would make up for the last 3 windows that we've had nothing to talk about at the LFC
If he just buy us Bellingham, to be honest with you, I'd forgive them for 6 months until next year, till the January after when he don't buy anyone. But I do want you Bellingham, to be honest. I do think that he will end up at Liverpool eventually. Probably not next summer because Dortmund would sell Haaland and Bellingham in one window. No chance.
Yeah, it would be a great signing. But again, I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're all in agreement. To an extent, Henderson, long-term future at Liverpool, but to get the best out of him, shouldn't put too much pressure on him to be a week in, week out starter. So that'll do it for our stream here today, unless we have anything else we want to hit on before we dash out of here. Actually, let's talk about the Arsenal match really quick. I'm interested in have we talked about this on a stream yet? It was formally postponed today, pissing Chelsea a lot of people off. Yeah. So, obviously, I mean, again, we're all 4 of us are Liverpool fans, so there's a good hint of bias here. But I don't personally understand the frustration from many fans because they're saying, why did Aston Villa not get to postpone last year? Why did Leyton Orient get booted out? When these are just different stages of the competition and different years.
That Aston Villa not getting to postpone last year comments are relevant because Liverpool physically had to field a side 28 hours or something apart when we were the other side of the world in the Club World Cup, and we still had to play. And the rules of the EFL actually state that if this was in the 3rd or 4th round, Liverpool would have had to forfeit the fixture like Leyton Orient did. But the rules clearly state if it's in the 5th round or semi-final, it must be rescheduled. That's what the rules state. So Liverpool haven't done anything wrong. The under-23s game against Burnley on Friday's being called off as well. So who was we meant to play?
The academy train at the same place. I saw a great tweet earlier that said to get us through AFCON, Jurgen Klopp went and coughed on all the door handles.
Arsenal fans wanted that game to be a bye purely because they know Liverpool will turn them over across 2 legs.
Look,
I'm not worried that the first leg's now at Anfield. Probably not, because if Klopp goes for this and plays a full strength team, obviously bar Mane and Salah, we still turn them over. We will batter out. They're so bad. And all you need is Arteta to just shout at Klopp a bit on the touchline again, get the crowd going. And game over. We batted them 4-0 the other week. If we beat them 4-0 at Anfield, they aren't beating us at the Emirates. No chance.
That was the thing that was funny to me because all the Arsenal fans were saying, "Oh, they're scared of Arteta's Reds." I'm like, what happened? Like a month and a half ago, you lost 4-0. It wasn't even close. It was a funny thing.
I just think it's comedy that, I know Karius isn't registered, but he was genuinely the only fit keeper. He literally can't catch anything, not even COVID.
I want to see the Karius redemption arc. I want to see the Karius.
Karius redemption arc in League 2 where he belongs.
Oh, come on, guys.
I never want to see that Liverpool shirt on Karius's back ever again.
Louis, do you want to see the Karius redemption arc?
I'm a romantic. I'd fucking love to see him come in and not concede or only concede 1 or 2.
I'd rather Adrian. I would honestly rather.
No way.
100%.
Adrian didn't throw the ball at a player in a Champions League final. Karius did.
He was concussed, and I will hold on to that.
Well, he should have said he was concussed and went off then instead of trying.
That's the whole point of concussion. You don't know you're concussed.
Oh no, that would be if he Carabao Cup final, wins us the penalty shootout. My heart would soar. It would soar.
I'd rather not win the Carabao Cup than see Karius play in that Liverpool team again. I can't.
Even if he won if he
won it for.
Yeah. So the Carabao Cup, it's a stupid energy drink. I don't last. I do never want to see Karius. It hurts me every time I see him in training. It's like, how are you still reaching onto this club? How are we still paying you a wage? Just go. Do one.
To be fair, though, he's a sexy bastard.
Yeah, he is. But to be fair, he couldn't even break in the Turkish league. He couldn't start in the Turkish league. Never mind Liverpool Football Club.
The stream went off. The stream went off the rails towards the end. We could do a debate room. Should Loris Karius be a part of the football club anymore?
Yeah, and I won the spelling bee competition in 2nd grade, to put it in Jack's thing. So you know what I'm saying? You know.
He's terrible. He's a leech. He's a proper leech.
Let's go. I need some food, boys.
Yeah, Chris needs some food. We'll all enjoy the rest of our Wednesdays. There is no match tomorrow, so no match day content. Maybe no Shrewsbury match on the weekend. So who knows when the next match day coverage is? But make sure to subscribe. We'll have all the transfer content you need. Matty, anything else?
That Shrewsbury game, would we have to forfeit that if we can't field the team? Because the rules different in the early rounds of competition, like they are in the Carabao Cup.
Yeah, no one said
I
anything
think
about the Shrewsbury game.
we'll have players fit for that.
Well,
The thing is, we'll have LFCTR back, and there'll be
Matty.
outrage because everyone will think that we've
Dodge
made it up, but they haven't really. They don't understand the concept of time, and the fact
Exactly.
that they got COVID a week ago, so they've been isolating and now they're fine. But fans up and down the country will not grasp that. So
Sean,
prepare ourselves.
Ginger. Kris is the one with the ginger beard. I'll take it. I'm all asked.
That was funny.
Waz is a handsome man.
No, he's not, fella.
You leave Waz alone.
That'll do it for our stream here today. It was a fun one. We talked about Henderson, talked about a lot of different stuff LFC related. Make sure to subscribe, like this stream.
Your banner, Kris, by the way. That's definitely your banner account.
I wish I was. I wish it
you
was.
would be linked to any other player if that wasn't your banner.
The links are strong there. I am. We'll keep an eye on that one down the road. Thanks to Louis, Kris, and Matty for joining me today. I've been Jack. This has been LFC Transfer. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all our platforms for the more content for the rest of the season. That's going to do it for us today.